Hi, my name's Tina, and someone asked me this morning if I could do a video on anchor charts. And so I was thinking that I would actually do a video on two different things that are near and dear to my heart as a former language arts teacher, which is the architecture of a mini lesson and anchor charts. So I'm gonna attempt, I've never done a mini lesson for teachers before, but I'm going to attempt to use this architecture of a mini lesson to create this anchor chart for you, so we'll see how that works. But before we do that, let me see if I can zoom in on, I don't know how the kids do that. I'll just bring you over here so that you can see what a mini lesson tends to, actually not just tends to, always includes. So they always have, they're usually about 12 to 15 minutes long, and they always, I mean not always, but it's recommended that they include these following things. So there's a hook, and that's when you kind of tell like a personal story to like connect with the class and just give them kind of like a real world context for what you're about to share with them. There's a teaching point where you just basically name what you're teaching them for that day, and generally that's what goes on the anchor chart. And then there's some teaching and modeling that goes along with that, and it's like you're thinking out loud to show how to use that teaching point. And then there's this active involvement phase where they work with a partner or they work in their own independent work, and then they share out. So they're getting involved some way at practicing, basically like guided practice, what you've modeled and taught them. And then there's this link phase where you're like sending them off to do their independent work, because in a workshop type environment, the kids are, basically doing their own independent writing and their own independent reading. So you're setting them up for that. So the majority of the time in the classroom is actually spent, because this is only 12 or 15 minutes long, right? The shorter the better, really, because then they have more time to work independently in their own reading and in their own writing projects that they're working on. And then I made an anchor chart here, and it says the anchor chart to explain anchor charts. So I'm going to try to hook these two things up so you can kind of see both of them at one time. The thing is, though, is that, let me back up so you can see better, but you can get everything in there. Sorry, people. All right, let's attempt to, wait. There you go. All right. So I kind of planned out this little mini lesson for you, and I'll teach it to you the way I would teach kids. I hope they hook up. We'll see how they work. All right, so you guys, have you ever spent, in regular teaching, I don't point to what part of the mini lesson that I'm on. Like, they just follow along. They don't have to know. But since you're teachers, I'm gonna point to what I'm saying. Okay, so you guys, have you ever spent money on something that you thought was like really cool, like maybe a book or a DVD or a CD? You guys still use those? Or a song off of iTunes? Or you guys don't buy songs off of iTunes? Whatever. You buy a book, you buy a magazine, something like that. You spend your good money on it, and then it just like sits there, and it's just, you kind of forget it's even there. However, like when you go to a performance of something, like maybe somebody's, like when we went to go see the author last week and they were reading out loud from their books down in the library, and it really came alive to us, and it didn't just like sit there on the shelf. It was like part of our lives because it was happening right in front of us. Well, that's what it's like when you make an anchor chart, as opposed to when you just buy something off the internet and slap it up on your wall. An anchor chart brings things to life for the class. It makes the learning happen right in front of you, so it's like you kind of can't look away. Like, you could buy a book and sit it on the shelf, but when we went down there to hear those authors, they were reading from their own book. It came alive for us. We couldn't really look away. So anchor charts are like that. What I want to teach you today is that when we build something together, it sticks in our brains better. So when we build things as teachers in front of our students, it sticks in their minds a lot more readily than it would if we like had everything listed on this anchor chart. So watch me as I fill out this anchor chart and think about how this is different from if I just presented you with a list of what would be on the anchor chart. Okay, so on my anchor chart I have a title, and my students sat down in front of me and they could see that this title is kind of our topic. And I tried to make it kind of catchy and kind of fun. And I tried to use some color. Some teachers get really fancy with their anchor charts. I tend to not. Strangely enough, I know I like to draw, I love artwork, but I tend to just make really vanilla anchor charts. Probably because I'm a middle school teacher, and the cutesy ones they tend to be like, you know, the little primary anchor charts that are like so interactive and they have pictures on them and everything. But I tend to make mine kind of just basic. But I do want my topic to be up there when the kids sit in front of me, because that means that they are gonna get a little curiosity. Okay, so the first thing that we need to know about an anchor chart is, like I said before, you build it in front of the kids. So it's built together, like in real time. So the kids are watching us make them. The second thing you need to know about an anchor chart is it usually has bullet points on it. And generally you're only adding, this anchor chart is, okay, so I've never done this before. So usually an anchor chart would have a bullet point on there, and I would only add one per day. But this is a little different because we're teachers, okay? So the bullet points are usually added like one at a time, one per day, maybe two per day. Also, the bullet points tend to be made in a very like short and like kind of kid friendly language. Well, A, you want it to be memorable to the kid, and B, you want it to not take a million years to write it down. Another thing about us as world language teachers is that we're probably going to not be doing all of our anchor charts in the language. If you wanted to check out primary grades anchor charts and see what they do for pre-literate kids, that might be fun. It's not something that I've ever, like until just right now, ever thought about doing, is like mining those strategies for teaching kindergartners and first graders using anchor charts, because those teachers they're practically doing the same job that we are, just with little kids. We got big kids. To see how they're making the learning come alive in a language that the kids are not literate in. Of course, they're still not, generally speaking, unless you're doing like an ESOL situation, you know, they're generally not also like acquiring the whole structure of the entire language like our kids are. So it might be something cool to look at. There's this really awesome book called Smarter Charts. I actually met the women who wrote this book one time in New York at Columbia Teachers College Summer Institutes, and they're so cool. They're like really creative, and their book's Smarter Charts. I think there's also like Smarter Charts too. It's full of really cute ideas. So that might be something to look into. But generally, in my situation, I'm doing these in L1, which for me is English. But if I were to go up with my kids, I'm just middle school, and if I ever got to go up to high school with them, then I would start doing the charts in L2. With my 8th graders at this point, I could probably do some charting in L2, but I am doing some other stuff right now, so could try that out, but might not have a chance this school year. So let's see, they're built together, they have bullet points, usually you add one per day, and usually these bullet points are the teaching point. So you would say, like, I literally did make this first one the teaching point, right? So I said, I want to teach you that it's much more powerful if we build these together. And so I put that over there, built together. But I do want to just give you some other points right here. So they're built together. They're bullet points, usually add one a day. They're short, kid-friendly language. You can add visuals if you want to. I would start off with beginner kids, unless you're like feeling dicey and feeling really brave and you want to go check out like what they do in the primary grades, because that might work really well for you. I don't know. Usually for me, I do them in English, and you could in the upper grades do it in L2. And then it's something that you're going to practice right away. So whatever you put here, you're going to practice right away in this active involvement. So I'm going to try to show you some active involvement right now. So hey, maybe you can play along at home. All right, so teachers. Usually in a mini lesson, you're calling them readers or writers, but I'll call you teachers. You're teachers. Okay, so teachers, I taught you today that when we do an anchor chart, we build it together so that it sticks in our brains better. So what I want you to do right now is to think about like a reading skill, right? So maybe it's how to pick a good book for you, or maybe it's how to figure things out in a book when you're feeling stuck, but you like the book and you don't want to give it up. Or maybe it's where to sit during reading time, or how to be, a good reader during reading time. Or maybe it's, I made that rubric, Habits of Good Readers, so I teach lessons off of there. So maybe it's like the habits of a good reader, or what your grade is based on in my class. It could also call it that, but it would probably be nice to call it habits of a good reader. So teachers, just think of something that you could want to teach your class over the course of, 3 to 5 days. And it would be like the focus for the week. And you could see yourself spending, in my language classes, I don't spend as much time as my regular language arts classes I used to spend, 12 to 15 minutes. In these language mini lessons, usually mine are really, really short because I don't want to spend all this time talking in English. So think of something, teachers, that like a big skill that you could break down into 3 to 5 points that you could teach over the course of a week, about 4 to 6 minutes per point. So just take a minute to think about that. You can pause the video, but in real life I would have the kids be like writing. Okay, so now that you've thought about this big skill, you want to do what I did, right? I had the big idea here, and you would write that down to have that ready for go ahead and write that down in your notebook. So you'd have that ready for the kids when they come in to kind of pique their curiosity. Oh, and did you make it kind of catchy? Here, turn to a partner. In my class, it's not just like a random partner. They like have a reading partner. Turn to your reading partner. Look, your teacher, so your teaching partner. Oh, I wish I had a teaching partner. Turn to your teaching partner and look at their title for their anchor chart and tell them if there's any way to like cuten it up or make it more hook to the kids or make it more, curiosity inducing. You can pause the video to do that if you want to. Okay, so now you've got like your best, most hookiest, fun thing that's gonna be up here when the kids walk in. All right, so now you're gonna plan out your 3 to 5 points under that big heading. So you wanna think, of course, about making them short and kid-friendly and making these little bullet points, and just think like, how many days do I want to spend on this? Probably 2 to 5 is probably ideal. So you're gonna pause the video, work with a partner or by yourself, and I'll wait for you. Okay, great, you're back. So let's hear, what did your partner have anybody help their partner to get a more catchy title? Oh, great. Okay, so what would your partner have at first? Okay, and how do you guys catchy it up? Hey, that sounds much more catchy. That's awesome. And let's see, anybody want to share some of the, bullet points they help their partner to make? Okay, cool. Now I was over here and I saw these people who had a pretty small topic at the top, and then they had to make the topic bigger because they knew that this anchor chart needs to be built over the course of a few days. So they had, I'm making this up. In a regular classroom, I would literally be like looking for what I could talk about, like while the kids are working. I'm going around like talking to them. During this active involvement part, I'm like looking at the kids and seeing who I can use as an example in case nobody volunteers, or even if people do volunteer, like maybe I want to highlight a certain like skill or something that I want them to learn. So anyway, I was over here earlier and they had a pretty small topic at the top. It said like, sit in a spot far away from your friends. And then they realized like that's not really something that you're going to spend a whole week on. And so they made that into one of these bullet points. And then what did you guys put for the top? Oh yeah, how to choose a good reading spot. Oh, but then you changed it. Oh yeah, you did. Picking a #1 spot for reading. That was so much more catchy. Nice job. All right, so today and any day that you want to make yourself an anchor chart, you should think about taking a topic that you want to spend a week on, and then breaking it down into like kid-friendly little bullet points, and then building it in front of the kids and just adding one every day. And don't worry about spending a few minutes in L1. I mean, come on, you give some to get some, right? So you're going to spend a little time in L1, but think about the return on investment. They're going to be like engaging with text. They're going to be like developing new habits as readers. It's going to be great. So anchor charts, they're awesome. Good luck. Enjoy. Thanks.